Hello. Today on the Patty Watts podcast, we'll be covering gang violence within Canada and how this and what's the impact on the individual and the community. So, first, we need to know what is a gang. What is organized crime? It's defined in the Criminal Code of Canada as a group of three or more people whose purpose is the commission of one or more serious offenses that would likely result in the direct or indirect receipt of material benefit, including a financial benefit by the group. So why should we care about gangs? Well, because from an individual standpoint, it sets up failure. It sets up failure for your future as well, and it sets up future for your kids and your in the future generation. Um, uh, Gang violence helps to fuel poverty with the importation of drugs and then selling these drugs onto the street to people who are already poor, making them spend the money they could be spending to, say, get a job or to buy food. Instead, they're doing this to use drugs. And on top of that, instead of going out to apply to get a job and just trying to live your life properly, they're out there on the streets, addicted to these drugs, constantly high, and instead of working to do those things that they should be doing, they're working towards raising money to buy more drugs. Um, Gang violence creates terror within the community as well as neighboring communities. So, for example, I live in Stittsville, um, and there's gang violence that goes down in the Bayshore area. And so sometimes if there's like a house party going on in Stittsville, gang members from the Bayshore area will come to these house parties and try and get them shut down by robbing people or trying to get into fights. And this has always been seen to happen when people from the Bayshore area show up to these parties, whether they're in a gang or not. That's another thing. So when there's these gangs in these areas, the kids growing up, even though they may not be in that gang, they will be associated with them or hanging out with them, and this will involve them in crimes, even though they may not be committing the crimes. It's conditioning them for their future in gang life. Um, so next up, we'll be talking about the history of gangs in Canada and gang violence. So first off, gang violence in Canada started off around the 1940s to 1950s, and this was when around they weren't referred to as gangs, but they were referred to as mafias. And only in the 1970s did the existence of these highly organized networks become noticeable in Canada and become known to the public, thanks to various court cases as well as Quebec inquiries into the mafia, the widely publicized report of the Weisberg Commission into construction violence in Ontario, and a series of mob killings in Montreal. In 1984, there were studies done by the Federal Provincial Committee of Justice estimating that organized crime in Canada took in about $20 million in revenue annually. Um, uh, and by 1980s, they had found out that these mafias were not just involved within drug trafficking, prostitution, guns trafficking, and many other different types of crimes. They were also involved in legal crime as well, like Canada's textile industry, cheese and disposal industries, vending machine companies, meat companies, home installation companies, car dealerships, and any other way you can make millions off of legal businesses. And at the time, the culture around these gangs, around the mafia, um, was that it was a form of clan cooperation to which individual members pledged lifelong loyalty. This means friendship connections, family ties, trust, loyalty, obedience. And that was the glue that held these mafias together. But as these mafias, these gangs, these biker gangs started to evolve, it started to lose that statement and started to bring more on of a corporate business attitude to where it's not much of a friendship. It's more of okay, so here I am a drug trafficker and you're a gun trafficker. So here I am a drug trafficker and here you are the drug dealer. we're going to become business partners, and I'm going to give you drugs and you're going to sell the drugs, and we're both going to make money. That's what it has become today. But still following that line of loyalty, well, not loyalty, still following that line of trust and connections, and the attitude of no snitching, which is the act of telling on someone for doing something bad or exposing them to other people that they were not supposed to be exposed to. All right, so next up we'll be looking at gangs from anthropology. The use of patches, jackets, bikes, colors, and gang signs are very popular within these communities. Biker patches are worn by members of motorcycle clubs as a form of message to let people know which clubs they belong to. A three-piece design is often regarded as the outlaw motorcycle club patch. Clubs that have 3 or more patches are not recognized and do not form part of the American Motorcycle Association, just because the amount of crime that normally comes with these three-piece gangs, these three-piece designs. The jackets and motorcycles are a very important way of identification of these gangs to the members. It is what separates them from the rest of the world. Other gangs use colors and hand signs to identify their gangs. This is almost exclusively used by street gangs such as the Halal Gang and the Neat Gang and the Bloods and Crips. One thing that is universal and very important to gangs across Canada is territory/turf. These are portions of cities and towns that are controlled by gangs and where they operate out of and make the money. To gangs, turf is very important, and for this reason, will go to such lengths as to kill people who simply are walking on their turf to get from, say, their house to a McDonald's. This turf is a fueler of their dominance, ego, and violence. Sociologically speaking, under feminist theory, within gangs, the majority that join are men and are started by men. It is very rare for a woman to join. One study called The Gender Composition of Gangs shows that around 93% of gang members are male. And when men join, there is an initiation that normally involves getting beat up or going out and beating or killing someone. On the other hand, women are normally not allowed to join a gang, but when women join, there is not always an initiation, and will join through sexual intercourse. And when joined, they will normally be used for alternative reasons like prostitution, being a drug mule, manipulation. Also used when cops are around. The mindset is that cops are nicer to girls, and many others, in many other uses that men won't be involved with. There are very few women who do what the male does, and even fewer women who start their own gang. When this does happen, she shows more dominance, is a feared individual, and strives to move up the ranks. Psychologically, what we'll be looking at what the attitude of these gang members are. These gang members all have a very similar attitude. Some qualities these gang members will take on is heavily focused towards respecting them or their gang. And a breach of that respect will often lead to fighting or death. Being real is another big focal point to their attitude. Being able to stick to your word and what you're saying you're going to do. If a gang member says he will kill someone and doesn't kill that person, that gang member will lose quite a lot of respect from his peers, and this also depends on the severity of what he is saying he's going to do or what he does. Probably the biggest and most universal attitude that a gang takes on is no snitching. This means that whatever trouble you or your friend gets in, you will not say a single word about you or them that will get you or them arrested. Snitching is the biggest no-no in a gang. If one is caught snitching, they will normally get robbed and then a beating and then killed after. Gangs not just expect you to stay in the gang, but you have no choice to leave. Leaving a gang always results in death. I would apply the behaviors and theory to this, as what holds these gangs together is a set of simple rules that keeps the important information safe. And these rules are conditioned to the child from the beginning of life, as parents are normally involved. Then, as you are in the gang, there is punishment for those who do not comply. And just to back up what I'm saying about not being able to leave the gang, a quote from the Hells Angels. So, retired or undercovered. There is no such thing as a retired or undercover Hells Angel member, and never has been. There are a few of our brothers who cannot associate with us due to our government and their parole situations. So even then, the people who do not associate with them are still considered members of that gang.
Oh, look at those.
Thank you. That'll be all for today's podcast, and I hope you guys learned a lot. Goodbye.